Because we were talking a little bit before the show, and I just want to run through this a little quickly. But like basically, yeah, you did that 13 years, came out and made 120 grand a year.
That's right. That's about what I made when I started. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mark Loeffler Experience. We got Brandon. He's definitely the most learned person I've ever had on this show. 13 years he spent and it had nothing to do with real estate. But he's definitely a smart guy. You want to listen to him. This is an economics degree in 30 minutes. You'll love it. Don't miss it. Watch the whole thing. Comment down below. Smash the like button. Brandon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So Brandon, you're the smartest guy that's probably ever going to be on this show.
Really?
Well, I mean, other than myself.
Okay, fair.
I mean,
fair.
the most, no, maybe I should say most learned.
Probably. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Because wait, does that make me the stupidest guest then? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't know. Most learned, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
Because you went to school how long?
Well, university 11 years.
11 years,
yeah.
And then you had a 2-hour tour to in like basically working for free to get the job that you wanted to.
Yeah, I did a 2-year residency after that. So 13 years all in when you factor in school, like an institution, and then in a hospital.
That's like secondary. Like we're not including like kindergarten to
nope.
high school there.
No, I was fully 30 before I even got my first real job, if you want to think.
Because I'm just trying to think. I only did 15 years total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And that was when there was grade 13.
Oh, I had grade 13.
Oh, okay.
I did. So like, I can't even,
you're
take that one
like
away.
20 plus years of school.
Yeah.
Like more than half your life.
Yeah.
Wow, that's sad.
Well, it was a little sad. Yeah, sometimes I wonder if it was a little sad, but I'm a forever student, so I like learning. I mean, you have to be in school that long.
Well, yeah. Learning and school are different. I mean, that's,
Okay.
I mean, in my opinion, I don't think I've ever stopped learning.
Me neither. I never will.
Yeah.
And for the record, I would actually, this current day and age, I probably wouldn't encourage someone to do what I just did, to be quite frank. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Because we were talking a little bit before the show, and I just want to run through this a little quickly. But like basically, yeah, you did that 13 years, came out and made 120 grand a year.
That's right. That's about what I made when I started. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was in Winnipeg, and at the time, you probably could have bought, a house for that in a year. But
absolutely, we could have done it. Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to actually have lived there, but you could have done it.
Well, it was a good town. Like, I have nothing against Winnipeg.
I
nice
just meant
people.
the area that you could have bought the $120,000 house in.
Yes, we could have. Yeah, absolutely. We could have afforded a home, no problem. I would have just walked up and said, "Hey," it would have been 3 or 4 times my income, probably.
Yeah.
Right. Compared to Ontario now, where it's what?
10 times.
10 times.
5 times.
Yeah. It's 10 times in Toronto for sure. It's 10 times.
Yeah.
London right now is probably about 6 or 7. Yeah.
There you go.
Painful.
Yeah. Definitely painful.
Yeah, definitely painful. Yeah.
All right, but let's talk. So I guess where I kind of want to go with this whole thing is, I want to talk about your transition from that into real estate.
Yeah.
And then what caught my attention was your Instagram.
Okay.
And like you talk a lot of economics on there. Mm-hmm. Like you're deep into this, like I am.
Yep.
Like you nerd out on this stuff.
Oh,
like
totally.
I do. Yeah,
I love it. Yeah.
And I love nerding out on this stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the watchers or listeners like this, but
that's okay.
I mean, they're paying for it, so
that's all good. Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. So let's just talk about that transition from a decently paid wage earner.
Yeah.
You were decent.
Probably top 5% at the time.
Yeah, top 5% at the time.
Yep.
But it's decent.
Yeah.
Not great, but decent.
Right.
It's good, not great.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was that transition? What made you go from, okay, I want to earn this wage into I want to own a business that includes real estate investments?
Well, that's such a good question. Probably 90% of it was just growing up, like just becoming a real adult. Okay. In my residency, my PhD, I met my wife. We got married. We had a kid in our first year of residency. We got pregnant again when we took that first job out west. And I learned pretty quickly that if she was going to stay at home and be with the kids like she wanted to do, that it was going to be tight. It was really going to be very tight, and it was going to be uncomfortable. And I got kind of upset about that and the fact that they weren't giving us any cost of living adjustments, effectively, for 5 years beforehand. And
So you walked in, and basically your first day on the job, or one of your first days on the job,
yeah,
they weren't. They hadn't had a raise in 5 years. So these are healthcare professionals because
Yes.
you are. You basically told me you use physics to help people cure cancer.
that's right.
Right.
Yeah, you got it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would think that should be a highly paid job.
I would think so too. Yeah.
Obviously,
Commensurate with the amount of training experience and quite frankly risk, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're shooting beams of radiation at people's bodies, you got to know what you're doing.
for sure.
You should probably want to entice someone who's smart and hardworking to do that, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
I think you'd have to be smart and hardworking
Yeah.
to go get that PhD in physics.
Yes.
To get to that level, and anyways,
Normally.
yeah.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about that. So your first couple days on the job in Winnipeg,
Yeah.
basically nobody had gotten a raise in 5 years.
Correct. Yeah. So I walked into the building. One of the colleagues took me aside and said, "Hey, Brandon, do you want to come to this meeting? We're going to talk about cola." And I said, "I don't even know what cola is. Like Coca-Cola?"
Yeah,
Like
like
legitimately, I
Pepsi,
said that.
like
Yeah, like Pepsi
RC,
or Coke.
like,
Yeah,
what are we talking
Totally.
here?
Yeah. And they said, no, silly cost of living adjustment. So
Sounds like a union term.
it is. Yeah, totally.
Okay.
So we walk in the room and sit me down and said, "Brandon, we haven't got paid any more money to account for inflation for 5 years." I went, "Oh, well, that sounds bad," but I didn't really know how bad until I went back to my office.
And when was that though? Like,
Oh, that was what was that? 2015.
2015. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
this is a pretty, like, you've come quickly to this
I
conclusion.
have.
Okay.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Honestly, it was an epiphany in that office. Like
Yeah.
I just ran some numbers. I realized how much money I was losing because that loss compounds.
Yeah,
over
because
20
even in 2015, what was inflation? 2%?
it was nothing.
2.3%?
Yeah. Imagine doing that today.
Yeah.
At 4, 5, 6% inflation, like punitive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you calculated that, like, yeah, if you had, so you basically figured out, okay, shit, I got to do something different
Yes, immediately.
immediately.
Yeah.
And then, so what, take me from the path from there to starting your real estate
Endeavors.
empire.
Yeah, right. Well, so like I said, I realized quite quickly my wage was not going to keep up with the cost of living. And that, so I did some research and I thought, well, maybe I can make it up by investing in the stock market. And you learn very quickly that, maybe 10% of people are actually successful in the endeavor. Like, who can actually beat, the S&P 500, for example.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to accept the return from an index, which realistically at the time was something like 5, 6, 7%. And then you go, okay.
Annualized, it's going to be that anyway.
Annualized, yeah. So then you think, okay, well, that's cool. So I make X amount of dollars. If I want to get to Y wealth someday, that means the 20, 30% savings rate,
Yep.
right? For 20 or 30 years. And I thought, wow, that's tight. Like, I already know what it costs for my wife and kids to be at home. And, like, for one car. Like, I ride a bike. I'm very frugal. I'm not a flashy person.
Like a bicycle, not like a
Well, I do cyclocross. Yeah,
Oh.
like it's a gravel bike. Yeah, I do.
well,
have
but it's not a motorcycle.
Oh no, it's pedal. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm all
because
about
when we-
exercise too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. There's no gas to the bike. There's no pattern. This is all brand and power.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, I just realized that the time frame was too long, and the savings rate was too punitive. So then I looked to my wife's family at the time, and they had a portfolio of real estate. And I looked at where they were, and their family was 20, 30 years ahead of me. And I saw what they had, and I said, well, maybe there's something to this real estate thing. So then I did some reading on that, and you just learn that, and I don't like to sound cliche, okay, and this is going to sound corny, but it is an ideal investment because you can get income, you get depreciation, you get equity pay down, right? You maybe get appreciation if you're lucky.
You can leverage.
And you can leverage, right? That's
Right.
the L. And if you do that with the leverage, you can compress the time scales to say, 5, 10 years, depending on how successful you are. So,
Yeah.
So then I decided, okay, it's time to make a change. So,
And you pick student rentals in London, Ontario.
yes.
And mainly because that's where your wife's family was, and
Totally.
they own student rentals.
Well, that's my family was there, my wife's
Oh,
family was
okay.
there, and the business was there, and there was potentially a job there someday, depending on how things would go. So, yeah.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
You're into real estate now.
Yeah.
When did you start diving down the economics rabbit hole?
Well, once you get some, once you get a lot of debt, all right, once you're accountable to a lot of debt, a lot of debt, you start caring a lot about economics, right? Because you've got skin in
Some
the game.
people do.
Well, they should. They
Yeah.
should. Because,
Well, and this is what I tell people.
yeah. I'm sure there are quite a few people in the last 2 years that have been caught off by the change in economics that have happened recently. And if they had been students of history, maybe they wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
So you should pay attention. I think in real estate, you got to know your micro universe, where your properties are.
Mm-hmm.
But you've also got to pay attention to your macro universe, right?
Yeah.
What's going on with interest rates and what's affecting those things, right?
All right. So let's talk about. Well, we got to go through a laundry list of stuff here, but we're going to start with inflation.
Okay.
All right. So obviously, inflation over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And we talked about this before you came on the show. We were both of the belief that they started way too late on interest rate increases.
Yeah.
They've put the hammer down.
Yes.
You don't think that the hammer stopped falling yet?
I think it's a very good chance we get another bump. Yep.
We've also discussed that you think they might change the target.
Eventually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually. So they look at their policy. It's a dual mandate policy. It's 2% inflation, 2% CPI, and it's also maximum employment.
2 to 3%, right? That's their target.
Correct, actually. It's a range, 1 to 3%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my view, yes, is that they're going to revisit that, I think, in 2026. And because inflation is secular, okay, it's secular now. It's not transitory, okay?
It was never transitory.
It was never transitory.
Never.
Mr. Loeffler Long, either he didn't understand or he lied to us. I don't know which one it is. I'm going to choose to say he didn't understand.
I basically believe most politicians are stupid. So I'm going to go with ignorance is his only defense on this one.
Well, I mean, okay, in his defense, we did shut the economy down.
Yeah.
Okay, so GDP was instantly negative.
Yeah.
Right? You have this huge money hole to fill, and they did fill it, Mark.
Oh, they filled it.
They filled it all right.
Yeah.
Right? So what else were they going to do? It was a Great Depression, or it was a lot of money printing.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to cut them some slack, I think, a little bit.
A little bit.
Yes.
So that stuff, sure. They flooded it. They flooded the economy. Got it.
Yeah.
They didn't turn off the taps quick enough.
No. Agreed.
And they didn't slow the drain down fast enough either.
Quantitative tightening.
Yeah.
They waited too long.
They waited too long. They were like, oh, the good times are rolling. Let's let the good times roll, and nothing bad will happen.
And now I think, I hate to say this, and I know everyone is a real estate person that watches your YouTube feed. I personally think they still haven't done enough. If they're really going to squash inflation, if they're serious about 2%, that's the actual question. Does the Bank of Canada really want a 2% inflation target? If they do, then they haven't done enough.
I think they're going to be okay with anything less than 3%, or anything even moderately close to that.
Okay. Yeah, I think they will too.
Yeah, for the time being.
For the time being, yeah.
Yeah, I think that. But all right, so make your prediction. Are they going to raise before the end of the year? Because most banks are calling for them for a decline next year.
For cuts.
Cuts.
Yeah.
Later
they've been calling for cuts forever, and they haven't cut anything.
Well,
Everyone's been taken off by this. Listen. Okay, so this is how I view it. It's secular now. Okay, What does that mean? It means it's entrenched in the system, and the money printing and the debt, the huge growth and money supply (M2). That was the inflationary impulse. But now it's in the system, and there's other changes that have happened since then. So what do we have? We have geopolitics. Okay, we have supply chains coming out of Asia back to North America.
It's going to cost more.
Costs way more. Way more. We have demographics. We have a whole segment of the population that needs to retire, is retiring. Those are the boomers.
Yep. And they all have money. Well, a lot of them have money.
They have money. Okay, here's a perfect example. In my job, Mark, guys have left. Okay, half of us have left.
Yeah.
And we can't find people to replace them.
And in 2015, you couldn't get a job.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's boom. That is a secular change.
And that's not something you can fix immediately because you got to take 13 years to get there.
Correct.
You can't go into high school today and say, hey, take a 3-year college diploma and then come work.
Yes, exactly. So exactly. So there's a decade there where we have a problem, okay? What else has happened? We have this green energy transition. What a nightmare, okay? I am not a climate change denier. There's carbon in the air. It has to come out. We do have global warming. Take a look around at the weather patterns. It's obvious to me, okay? However, you cannot tell the world in one instant to go off oil.
So it's funny. I was watching George Carlin on a short this morning.
Yep.
And he talks about climate change. And he's like, the Earth has been here for a trillion years, whatever it is.
Okay.
Humans have occupied it for 10,000 years?
That much time.
That much time, like
Yeah.
this blip on there.
Yeah.
And we've had heavy industry for what?
200 years.
150, 200 years
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
And he's like, and that we're the cause, like the earth has gone through so much earthquakes, tectonic shifts, asteroids, sandstorm, all these types of things.
Yeah.
And has survived. So he says the earth will survive, we just might not.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Earth will be fine. I mean, it's in
It
equilibrium.
will repair itself.
We've stressed it, right?
Yeah.
And, well, the stressor will be removed, which is us,
Yeah.
and then it'll snap back to whatever equilibrium form existed before we were here. So,
It's like that, the cartoon Wall-E.
yes.
Yeah.
So, we can't. Anyway, so the point is the issue is oil became not fashionable anymore, right? It became unpopular. So, finance is gone now. So,
Yeah.
they haven't done any exploration, they haven't done any capital expenditures. We've effectively baked in a structural or secular lack of supply
Yeah.
for forever now, even though more and more demand is coming on. Right? We got India, they're going to industrialize. We got Africa, they got to industrialize someday. That's
Yeah.
going to take a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And the best, cheapest supply of energy is oil currently. You know, I personally think we should go full nuclear everywhere. You know, it has an equivalent energy density. Actually, it has more energy density than oil. It's the answer.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
But that's probably politically not.
well, we're getting there. I think.
Are we?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Europeans have learned pretty quickly that you know, you can't rely on Putin,
Yeah.
and it's time to get our energy act together because that's a huge risk, right? It's
Yeah.
geopolitical risk. So anyway, the point is to make that transition very expensive, takes a lot of time. The last thing on my list to say that inflation is secular is debt. There's a lot of debt.
Well, we were talking about this, and it's not just like debt that you and I have.
No,
It's the government debt.
it's the government debt.
And
Yes.
what's one way they get rid of their debt?
They can inflate it away.
They inflate their way out of it.
Yes, yes,
And most people don't realize that inflation is a tax on the poor.
absolutely. It's a tax on all of us,
It's a tax on all
but
of
the
us.
poor feel it.
Yeah.
They feel it more than anybody.
But those people with assets
They're
they're insulated.
They're insulated.
A little bit.
Which
if
is
they have the right assets.
So going back to the starting of the story, I was feeling the squeeze at 2%. Okay, I couldn't imagine what it's like for someone now 4, 5, and 6%. Like think about like the Timmy's cashier person. You know,
Well, they just
That's-
got a 9% wage hike.
I don't care. It's not enough. Do 4, 5, 6 compounded over 3 years. It's more than 9.
It's true.
It's getting there.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they just went to $16.75 an hour.
The minimum wage?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so long story short, we're at this point in our history where all the Western worlds have a debt to GDP more than 100%. Japan is like 250%, maybe
Yeah.
300%. It's insane.
But they don't care.
Okay, but like I care because the boomers, particularly in the US, like here too in Canada, they're going to need health care.
Yeah.
They're going to need a pension,
Yeah.
right? And there's no productivity to create these extra funds.
Well, that's why we're importing 1 million people a year to
Well,
be
we could.
productive.
Well, okay, that's a lot of growth.
Oh yeah.
I mean, but we're not growing. We are growing. We are growing in like a nominal term. Like GDP is growing, but GDP per capita is dismal. It is like we haven't moved since 2017.
yeah.
So anyway, long
What
story.
happened in 2017? I don't remember.
I don't know. You tell me. Oh, is that the when the market?
No, I'm just wondering who we elected.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Okay, I know who. Okay, yeah.
I
Fair.
don't really like to talk politics on the show.
Well-
you know, I like to bash our benevolent dictator sometimes.
Yeah, he deserves it. I think he deserves it too. It's been a pretty bad run since he's taken over. Like financially, economically speaking, for sure.
Yeah.
So
Anyways, we digress.
inflation isn't going away. So they may beat it down with a very tight conservative monetary policy.
And you think they got to get to 7-8% short-term rates to make that happen?
Well, they didn't have to get that high, but because they lag so long and they've let it become entrenched in the system, now they do. The real problem, Mark, is that wage growth
Yeah.
is like 4.5%, 5% in Canada. In the U.S., it's the same.
Yeah.
So think about that. Every year, people can afford to buy 5% more.
So do you think that's going to shift though with a tight or with a looser employment market by saying that there's going to be less jobs out there because there's job cuts that are happening right now on a very high level, like they're like C-suite, like VP, like senior level. They're cutting.
Sure. Job vacancies are now declining. For sure. So the rates are taking an effect. Okay, but at the same time, read the papers every day. There's another union going for a pay bump. So
yes, they are, but it's then it comes down to, well, okay, we're just going to sit here and like look at the auto strikes, right? So I don't get any news anymore because of this whole Meta thing, which is I think is awesome.
Okay.
Well, no, I just don't like the news. So
well, I don't like the fact that Justin Trudeau says I can't share a news article.
I understand that too.
Instagram, that's ridiculous.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I do like the fact that I don't really get the news anymore, so that's out of my head.
Okay.
But
I like.
Let's talk about the auto workers, right?
Okay.
Let's talk about. So they're fighting for some stupid wage hike or whatever it is.
40% in 5 years.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
And I think that the automakers can literally sit here for a year and say, "Go nuts."
They have so much product.
They have so much inventory sitting there. They recognize that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And they're like, we'll just sit here and wait. And
maybe I don't know how that dynamic will go. So so what you're describing is the war now between capital and labor.
Yeah.
I think labor will win personally. That's my view because of the structural demographic situation.
I don't know. Biden lines up with the union, and then
that's right.
Lines up with.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But right now, wages are growing. On average of 5% a year, you can't.
No, I get that. Yeah, it's a fact.
That's already happened. Like even without the current, negotiation bargaining.
Yeah.
So to me, we are in what's called a wage growth cycle. Okay, so wages go up 5%. People can afford to spend 5% more. So the private sector jacks prices by 5%, and then they go back and negotiate 5%.
Well, they got to jack the rate or the goods and services because they're paying more for, like your.
It's a vicious cycle.
Your coffee at Tim Hortons is going to cost more because they're paying the thing. And they're like, we need these margins.
So how do you break this vicious cycle? Effectively, you have to raise interest rates high enough. Okay, and here's the key, which I don't even know if we've really seen yet. You have to have a meaningful decline in asset value. Okay, it's not like. Well, you'll get to unemployment. You have a meaningful decline in asset value.
Yeah.
That constrains consumption. The private sector says, oh, geez, I'm in an earnings recession. I'm going to start laying people off. Unemployment rises. Consumers, their spending rate drops. Boom, you hit the CPI 2%. But you've got to have like 7, 8, 9, 10% unemployment to make this happen.
You don't think that we've seen the drop in the consumer spending already? That's going to cause...
It's dropped, but it's kind of ruddering about.
Yeah.
You really need to. It needs to just crash.
And yet you're still investing in real estate right now.
Actually, I think this is a great time. I've openly said I think this is going to be a once in a life opportunity in southwestern Ontario. I really believe that.
Okay, but you're saying all that, but then you're saying there's this doom and gloom over here.
It's total doom and gloom. But if you've been smart and studied your macroeconomic cycles and prepared for this, I think there's a real opportunity. So effectively, if you hedge your bet on mortgage interest rates increasing because of this inflation problem, I don't know, got a 10-year term mortgage, okay, when they were offering money at 2% if you locked in for 10 years.
Which you did.
Which I did, yes. Yeah. And then...
And you sold a house at the peak.
I did sell a house at the peak, yep, which I saw the trends happening.
A
little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Fair. Yeah. So anyway, so if you play these cycles correctly, you could be positioned to take advantage of the huge opportunities. So.
Right. So, what would you buy and why right now? Obviously, you buy student rentals, so you probably buy more of that. But why would you buy that? Why would you buy more right now?
Okay. Well, first of all, because it might be the first time in a decade where you might be able to purchase in cash flow immediately without doing some sort of creative value add strategy.
100%. We're buying stuff right now and cash flowing out of the gate, even at 6%, 6.5% interest rates.
Yeah. So we're getting to that, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Why else would I buy student rentals? I like student rentals because
Well, just real estate in general.
Just real estate in general?
Like student rental that's your business that you
Yeah.
focus on in real estate.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, everyone has what they focus on. I do multifamilies, I do burrs on them, and that's really I just stick to it. People ask me why I don't do development because I don't need to be distracted.
Right. You're really good at that. So.
I'm really good at this one thing. It's easy for me. I have a system and a model that I follow.
Yes.
To go do these other things takes a lot of time and energy that I'd rather
It's-
be biking, running, spending time with my kids, or doing whatever.
It's
right?
the riches and the niches, right?
Yeah.
So you've that I agree. So I guess the same way that's why I'd probably stick with student rentals.
Yeah. So why real estate right now, though?
Okay, because long term, this business model is going to be hugely successful. I still feel that way. I know there's a lot of pain right now with interest rates, but that was because that was a bad short term.
Fundamentally, though, why?
Okay, because we have a structural supply deficit problem. Okay?
That's what I wanted you
That's
to
what
say.
you wanted. So right now, CMHC, okay, says we have to build about 3.5 million homes.
We have 1 million homes shortage, right? Right now or something, wasn't it? I don't know.
I don't know, but we need to build 150K homes a year in Ontario to get 1.5
Yeah.
by 2030. The most we've ever built in the 1970s when the boomers were like, yeah, I need a house, was 70K a year. This is coming from Benny Tell at CIBC, okay?
Yeah.
So the most we've ever built was 70K a year, okay? Now, another interesting factoid is we're going to have 300K construction workers leave the workforce in the next 10 years.
Yep.
And the 1 million immigrants we brought in, only 2% of them are actually tradespeople. Like, I think they're all going to be IT specialists or something. I don't know what they're going to do when they get here. But
Here's a hammer.
here,
Learn how to
hopefully,
use
I
it.
mean, if we're gonna, I'm a huge fan of immigration. We need it. We gotta replace the boomers.
But
But do it
any
smartly.
of the immigrants that are trades, they just go right to Alberta.
Probably right now.
Yeah, and they live in my apartment.
Well, there you
buildings.
go. Yeah. So actually, to your kudos, I would say that play to go out to Edmonton was very bright, very smart move. You got ahead of the migration patterns that are happening right now in a big way.
But that's, I don't know, mate. I think I'm going to link one of the videos that I said, like, hey, I'm exploring different markets.
Yeah.
Here's what I found in Alberta. This is why I'm going there.
Yep.
And I said that. I'm like,
You did.
Provincial immigration is higher.
I remember
like,
hearing you say that.
immigration. Yeah.
You were expecting an oil boom
Yeah.
at the time. You were right. I think
Even
you
if
were right.
I said, even if oil sits at $65 or $70 a barrel,
Yeah,
like I'm laughing.
you're laughing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Because again, it's not the exploration boom anymore. I don't need that.
you don't need that.
We don't need that in Alberta. It's just, steady oil. And now it's boomed and like the provincial coffers are flowing with billions of dollars and
Yeah.
which
So, anyway, long term, we have this structural supply deficit. We're piling millions of people. We got no place for them to live. So,
Yeah.
being a landlord is going to be a good business, generally speaking,
yeah.
provided we don't have a socialist government come to power in Ontario. That's the only thing that would bother me about being a landlord.
So it's so funny. All my Albertan friends are like, we think at some point we might get a rent control or this
Yes.
or that. And I said to them, well, buy as much as you can right now. And they're like, why? I'm like, because if rent control ever comes in, it'll be the greatest thing that ever happens to your asset values.
Okay, I don't get that. Why?
Well, look at Ontario. I mean, I can't, if I try to sell something in Alberta at a 3 cap, they're going to laugh at me. And nobody will build anything. Who will build anything in Alberta if there's going to be a rent control?
True.
Right? So, again, they're going to limit supply, and demand we know is going to increase over time. So, again, they're going to make a structural problem out there that isn't there right now.
That's an interesting argument.
Right? So it's funny because we were talking a little bit before about how to buy an apartment building in Ontario, say Southwestern, or just Ontario in general.
Yeah.
And you were talking cap rates.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm like, you can't buy in Ontario based on cap rates
Because the rents are stale.
because the rents are stale. Like, you have a unit that guys lived there for 30 years paying $500 in rent.
Yeah.
He's going to die or move out at some point.
Yeah.
And then that unit right now could be rented without renovation at like $1,500.
By the way-
renovate it, you could get it for $2,400.
That's why I like students.
Well, yes,
It's a
because it turns
three-year
over.
a 3-year rental cycle.
Yeah.
So it's an inherent inflation hedge,
Yeah,
right?
and it's true. It's just a lot more work, which I don't want to put in.
It's not that much work, Mark. It's not.
Anyways,
Yeah.
but buying apartment buildings, like you gotta pay for that gap, and it's just a matter of how much.
So okay, that's an interesting assessment. I've never thought of it that way. Thank you for presenting that. I'll think about that.
In Alberta too, it's truly a business relationship. Is I want to do good for the tenant, so they want to stay in my property because turnover costs me money. Whereas you're saying in Ontario, you want to turn over every 3 years because you can't keep up with inflation.
That's the problem.
Right. So in Alberta, it doesn't matter because I can keep up with inflation.
Because
I can raise the rent once a year, whatever the market will bear.
Okay,
I want to do it so they don't leave. So maybe I go $25 less than I can get on the market. So they go and look and they're like, oh, it's going to cost me and I got to move and blah, 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 whatever, right?
Right. So that's fair. So I think my concern is okay, so can I share this with you? This is safe space.
Yeah.
All the real estate people there are going to freak out. Okay. There was a period after World War II in France. Okay. There's a book out there. It's Thomas Piketty. He's a French economist, and he wrote a book called Capital in the 21st Century.
I've read it.
Have you read it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, there's a chapter in there, and he talks about what France did to close the wealth gap. Okay, we have big wealth gaps right now.
Oh, yeah.
There's a very good chance something will be done to close that. So what France did is they let inflation rip after World War II. They had to build everything back up again.
Yeah.
Right? And what they did is they capped the rents. Okay, so in the background, this is my view on it. You have your property tax going up, which we've actually seen in Ontario recently.
Yep.
You've got your repairs, your maintenance, your CapEx, your utilities, all that stuff gets more expensive, but your income is capped on the building.
Yep.
It's not on the unit, it's not on the lease, it's on the building. So it's $1,000 a month for 10 years. Like that will destroy the value of real estate.
That would, yes.
That's my concern with socialism.
That's the extreme of the extremes.
Well, we've got a paper out by the Simon Fraser Institute last year that asked millennials and Generation Z, what type of political environment do you want in the future? Do you think they said capitalism?
Yeah, but by the time they actually become a block of voting, they'll have paid enough taxes that they'll be like, we don't want socialism anymore, because they go through that. Like, I'm sure when you were a student, like you had socialist tendencies.
My buddies think I'm like a conservative guy now.
They think you're
where back in the day I was more of a liberal. You know, I would have been on the JT band when I was a student.
Yeah, because he's pretty.
Well, he has nice hair. But anyway, all I'm saying is, okay, here's one risk that I kind of think about with real estate going forward is that there are two generations of people that have been totally locked out of the housing market and out of this whole wealth building scheme. And that is Generation Z and the millennials. And in a decade, all the boomers are dead. And they will come into power, and they will have political power, and they may rework this.
Say a decade?
Yeah, sure, decade or two.
Yeah, they're living longer. I would give them at least 2 to 3.
So I went to city council meetings last summer, okay? This is in London, Ontario. I watched these councillors, who are all gray-haired boomers.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about a housing crisis. Like, people need a place to live. And the boomers are sitting in the front of the room, and they're saying things like, I don't want to worry about parking on my street. I don't want loud parties. We can't do Bill 23. We can't allow multiple units on the lot. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, these people are so far removed for the reality of the bottom half of the population. They don't understand this is a housing crisis, and they're treating it like it's a...
Well, it's not in my backyard.
Yes. The
NIMBYs. It's like, put it over there. That's fine, but not in my backyard.
So in 10 years...
Don't affect my life.
So in 10 years, they're all gone. And then who's going to be elected? It's going to be a new generation of people that have a very different mentality about wealth and real estate.
And do you think they're going to be any better on the housing crisis?
That has yet to be seen. But they might implement rules which make it hard to be a landlord. So,
well, the harder they make it...
You think the more valuable it becomes.
Well, no. Well, number one, yes.
Yeah.
But number two, nobody's going to build.
No one's going to build.
So when did they stop building rental housing in Ontario?
Probably, was it 80s or 90s where they pivoted to stop building purpose-built rentals and go to condos or something like that?
79, 80.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened then? You're a student of history and economics. You should know this.
Okay, well, you fill me in.
They put a, whatever your unit was rented for before, that's all you could ask for rent.
Right.
So if it was $400, you couldn't increase it.
Fair. Yeah.
So
okay.
that unit was tagged as $400.
Right.
But they needed and this was in the 80s, and why they got rid of it was because, again, nobody was building anything. They had a shortage of housing then, and they haven't built enough housing since because of the stupid rules, right? Because nobody wants to. It's not even the stupid rules around landlord-tenant. Like, you get a bad tenant in Ontario, it takes you a year to evict, maybe 2 years to where you're paying the mortgage and they're living for free.
Yeah, yeah.
They're doing something criminal that you can't charge them criminally for. Number two, it takes you 3 years to get a building approved.
Right.
Like from today to shovel ready.
I'm with you.
Right.
We have projects that we would like to do to help add supply, and it's like the city's telling us, no, sorry, you can't add supply. It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now you have that in the 80s, and people just tried out, but there was like 20 applicants for every unit. Anything else you want to share before we?
No, I think that was good. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Guys, one of my favorite shows I've ever put on. Thanks for watching to the end. If you liked it, share it with your friends. Smash the like button. Comment down below. Let us know who else you'd like to see on the show. Thanks, everyone.